trees are considered representatives of life, wisdom, power, and prosperity. But what would you do if you were offered the opportunity to not only control it, but also offer it to others? Greetings, traveler. I am Seven, and I will be your guide in the origin tale for the first of our 3 protagonists in the Tales of the Last series, a reptilian humanoid known as Verneri. On the southern side of the galaxy near its edge, there exists a planet that is home to a race of sentient beings self-dubbed the Musimtu. Due in part to their planet being close to their star, they have adapted skin like that of a lizard to keep in water because their planet doesn't have all that much of it. They've evolved to garden much like humans have, in order to keep a steady supply of water to support their civilization spread across the world. However, for reasons no researcher on the planet could explain, the water was disappearing. It wasn't turning into water vapor as part of the water cycle, or even sinking into the ground. It was vanishing. Among the arid sands, a lone Musimtu trudged his way to a small village getting closer from the distance. His every step took mere seconds to be covered by the sands upon the wind. His gaze was cast downwards, and his heart was full of shame and despair. He was returning empty-handed, again. When he reached the outskirts of town, one of his people ran up to him.
Verneri, have you found anything yet to...
Verneri continued walking, shaking his head.
Son, while you were gone, they made an announcement. You could have my water ration, Mother. I don't need it. I don't deserve it for having failed our people again. Not even a trace of water to be seen. Only endless desert. Even I am afraid to go more than a day's length out there. You are not skipping another day's worth of water ration. I don't care how resilient you think you are. But that's not what the announcement was about. The elders have declared that within the next solar cycle, the remaining water will be all but gone from our world. And so, they're taking volunteers with good water retention and giving them a supply to last a few days so that they can go deep into the desert and find more water.
She clenched her hands, and her voice began to quiver.
They're taking volunteers until the star sets, because the teams will be sent out tomorrow before the star rises.
Her body's pigmentation started to slightly blue shift.
Mother. And because her father gave his life to find the current water supply, they were asking if you wanted.
Verneri hugged her.
Fear not, Mother. I shall find the truth of the water, one way or another. The answer is just out of reach. I can almost feel it. Out there amongst the dunes. I will find it, just as Father did.
His mother lowered her head and whispered under her breath.
That's what I'm afraid of. Did you say something, Mother?
She lightly grabbed his arm, leading him back to the village.
You are long overdue for your water. No son of mine is drying out on my watch.
Verneri smiled as she shoved a water ration into his claw.
I love you too, Mother.
She brought him to the village hub where registration was being done, her footsteps slowing as they got closer to the building, until she stopped at the front door. Silence set in as she stood holding Verneri's arm with a tight grip. The door was large and wooden, its presence loomed over them. His gaze never faltered from the door, while his mind failed to find the words. His mother refused to acknowledge the door's presence. The door was suddenly opened by two Musimtu, one larger than Verneri, and one smaller. The larger one had a scar on its right arm, and the smaller one had a rather long tail and was missing its right leg. Wood in the shape of a leg was its replacement.
Pedosave, Dost. Any tall tales you're open to tell by signing up for the expedition?
Verneri's mother released his arm, and a frown tried to spread across his face. A toothy grin spread across the faces of Pedosave and Dost when they noticed Verneri.
Vern! The only tall tale we have is Dost, and she still doesn't want a reduction.
Dost stood next to Pedosave with a smile on her face, and then struck him across the face with her tail.
Ooh. See what I mean? A danger to society. But enough about us. The minute we heard the call go out for volunteers to go deeper into the desert than either the two of us had ever gone, we rushed to registration, so we can have you join our team and bear witness to our great feats of heroism.
Dost lightly elbowed him as Vern's mother began to walk away.
Also, tough alone, tougher as a unit. Village motto and all that. And certain parties wanted us to make sure that you make it back in one piece. Besides, who better for a team than three of the greatest adventurers in the village?
He joyfully put his arms around Vern and Dost while laughing. Dost then proceeded to slap him with her tail hard enough to knock him out. Vern looked at Dost, the fear setting in. She smiled and grabbed Pedosave, dragging him by the tail and walking off, his head hitting steps and rocks along the way.
Until tomorrow then?
He shouted in a confused voice, as he muttered under his breath.
I can never get a read on her.
Vern then walked into the building to finish registration. The doors creaked open, revealing two Musimtu overseeing the sign-ups. When they saw Vern, they beckoned him to one of the sign-up sheets.
We were worried you wouldn't show. You're usually back in town earlier. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Either our search ends tomorrow, or I do. And I won't fail again. You make your father proud, young one. I have complete faith in you. Thank you. That means more than you know.
When writing his name down, his hand was a little unsteady. When Vern returned home, he found that his mother had already prepared food and gone to bed, and alongside the food was his water ration, and some of hers. He quickly downed his food and water rations, and went to bed, leaving only his mother's water ration on the table. The next morning, Vern left early, passing by the water ration still on the table. He stopped for a moment and looked at the water ration.
Take care, Mother. I hope we meet again.
He hesitated, closing the door for a moment, before disembarking to meet up with the others in the village square. The air outside was more dry than usual, and the morning twilight carried with it a heavy threat. When Vern arrived at the meeting place, he saw a veritable army of his people, everyone talking with each other, doing stretches, and generally waiting. Vern looked at his people and started to tremble. Until Pedosave called his name.
Verneri! Get over here and save me from Dost!
Vern took a quick look around and found Pedosave running from Dost straight to him. Pedosave immediately hid behind Vern, Dost stopping in front of Vern with a smile on her face. He looked back at Pedosave.
Don't drag me into this. You're a big Musinto, you can handle this. You're bigger than me.
Dust slowly began to approach the duo.
What did you do to her? Nothing. Don't worry about it. You're using me as a guard. It is very much a concern of mine.
Dust stared at the two, a smile creeping across her face. The duo watched her carefully. Vern started to shake as her tail slowly started to move back and forth. She reached behind her back and slowly pulled out of her bag water rations.
Oh, I nearly forgot. Vern, your water rations for the trip.
He took Vern's portion from her and gave it to him.
What would I do without you, my dear?
She beamed with delight. He smiled back, and then his smile began to fade slowly the more he looked at her.
You're going to hit me again, aren't you?
She quickly struck him with her tail, and he fell to the ground, groaning. Vern took a step back, and she turned her attention to him. In a desperate bid to change the topic from her violence, he asked her,
How did you two meet?
Her usual smile changed to a neutral face. She raised her head and pointed to a large and deep scar on her neck, and his heart sank. Patterson began to collect himself from the ground, and Doss helped him up. Confusion was plain on Vern's face.
That scar is a permanent reminder that I was too slow, too weak, and it cost someone I care about dearly. That desert is an unforgiving place, Verneri. The deeper you go, the worse it seems to get, promising you only death as a reward for your bravery. That scorpion will die one day for what it's done to us and all the others who have gone deep into the desert. I swear it. I've always wondered why you two chose to make a straight path into the most dangerous areas instead of covering a larger area. Huh. We'll leave endurance challenges to strong Musintu like you, my friend.
He pat Vern on the back.
Combatants like Dust and I are better suited to taking out future threats. Over 100 solar cycles of guarding our humble village, and I only have 2 blemishes on my record.
Vern began to look pensive at the mention of a second blemish, as Doss slightly elbowed Patterson.
Record? But no matter the cost, we must push on. The lives of our people depend on it.
He put his arms around Vern and Doss.
And you, Verneri, you'll go further than us all. I've heard of your exploration routes.
Vern's eyes widened as he averted his gaze.
Yes, I know how you go beyond the limits the Elders set for ones as young as you. You've gone deep into the regions far from home, haven't you? How did you know?
Patterson gave a toothy grin.
You just told me! What? I had a sneaking suspicion about how you could be taking so long on such shallow deaths from home. How did I fall for that? Don't worry about it, brother. I'm sure your mother and the Elders are well aware of your efforts. I doubt the Elders are afraid considering your pedigree. But your mother, you do make her worry.
Vern pulled himself out from under Patterson's arm.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to make anyone worry. And there shall be no need for worry while Dust and I are watching over you. You shall return to your mother with news of a new water source. This we vow.
Patterson gently turned Verneri and began to push him away from the village. Dust followed, looking one last time at the village. A warm smile made its way across her face. She looked to her teammates and ran to catch up to them.